Susan Bier, a las actrices Sonia Richter y Paprika Steen. Tenemos también al actor Mads Mikkelsen y la productora Vibeke Bindeloev.
Okay, can you all hear me? Is that okay? Can you hear? Good. All right. Thank you.
All of my unlucky numbers hiding in the row while the tap is dripping.
Él es Nikolai, el actor,
Predicting what will be.
y Andrés Thomas Jansen, el productor.
And even numbers scare me. They even set me free.
My question for the director is, on one occasion you said that you like the dogma principles, but the dogma principle that's most difficult to fulfill is the principle related to sound, the live sound when you're filming. Why do you believe this is such a difficulty?
Well, that's a kind of a very technical answer, but it has to do with any sound which is not really active within the frame which is being shot. This film has just been shot with one camera, and as soon as there are any sort of sound off, I mean not in the picture, in the actual frame, it has to be done live, where normally you can lay it onto the sound afterwards. You can't do that doing dogma, and that tends, like for example, a telephone conversation. If you don't want to cut it every time you cut, to make a cut to another location where the other person is talking, if you want somehow to leave an answer on a face where you can see the effect of the answer, you have to do it whilst actually filming. So if Sonia is talking to Mads, she has to be somewhere else talking on the phone, and we have to actually produce that sound at the same time. And that to me turns the whole dogma, which is actually a very flexible and very artistically satisfying way of shooting, that in terms of the sound, it makes it much more technical and actually quite stiff. And that's why I don't really think that the rules of sound necessarily support the whole concept of dogma.
I want to ask two questions. First one, I was really shocked when in the hospital the doctor told to this wounded man that his life will be completely paralyzed for just immediately like this without any compromise. And that doesn't happen in our hospital in the Latin part of Europe, absolutely. And I want to know if it is something concerning, you want to criticize this way of so tough to approach to the people's feelings, or you want only to show us your culture and this kind of relationship in your country? This is the first question. The second question is about these very clever things you put in the films. When two of the characters, they meet each other, sometimes they hope to do something, and you show for a few seconds in a video this kind of, how would be this hope to caress together or something like this? How did you get this? Thank you.
Okay, to answer the first question, what happens in our country, I can't obviously say what happened in your countries, is that the doctors are also human beings. And by now they've reached a point where I think, partly for their own sake, in fact, they find it a lot easier, and it might be very cruel, very, very brutal, but they find it a lot easier to deal with the truth immediately, and then afterwards build up whatever had happened. You can, I mean, there's always discussions, and that's in fact a medical discussion, it's not really for us to have, but obviously I think for anybody receiving a terrible truth of some kind, it's always terrible, and it's not necessarily less terrible by receiving it in small doses. And I think that that's why they're doing it that way. That was the first question. And the second question referring to the Super 8 material, it is Super 8. The rest is shot on digital. It was a way of you could say it was a way of showing what we wanted, what the persons in the scenes would have wanted to do, but not necessarily in a symbolic manner, but just like a hint of a flow, an undercurrent which was taking place underneath of the actual scene. And well, that was a concept, and I'm glad that seemed to go through.
Hello, my name is Jan Lumholt. I'm from Sweden. I want to ask two questions too, if that's okay. I hate to be one of those people looking for a breaking of the rules, but in the beginning of the film there is blood, and I hope it isn't your blood, Nikolai Lee Kos.
It isn't.
That was a very big decision for you. Can you tell me about that? You must have thought about it.
Well, in all the Dogma films, the actors have always had their own looks and have always brought to the place whatever they felt was appropriate at that situation. And Nikolai thought that a person being damaged by a car naturally would have blood coming out from his head. I mean, maybe he wants to say something about that himself.
Yeah, it's a prop like every other thing, and you can put onto the scene what the actor provides to the scene. And I took some blood to the scene because that was my prop for the day, some of them, and so it's legal, you know.
What is it, a pig?
It's you know, it's theater blood. It's something that I have borrowed for someone. It's not something that is provided by the crew or something like that.
Look, a lipstick is also brought to the scene. It's just not as obvious.
Not as scary.
No.
The other question is to you, Susanne Bier. In this film, I thought I found a couple of little greetings to Lars von Trier. I get the impression that a lot of the hospital is Rikshospitalet, right? As pictured and in the kingdom. We have a couple very much in love, where the man gets paralyzed, like in Breaking the Waves. And we also have Nikolai Lee Kos having to have help, to get help when he goes to the bathroom, like in The Idiots. Were those little thank yous to the Archbishop of the Dogma movement for letting you into the cathedral?
Thomas?
Vil du svare på det?
Nej, helst ikke. det skulle du selv gøre.
Look, I think people, or
I overdoing this
the
analysis?
audiences viewing something always tend to see subconscious symbolism. And I think in this case it's very much subconscious, if it's there at all. It's not, they are not greetings, but in all respect, it's fine that you see it like that.
Good morning. I would like to ask you, the director, several questions. When you chose the story about a man who ends up being paralyzed, you wanted to tell what a real character like that was going to feel, or was it a dramatic point in order to put the character at a limit situation? Was that the idea behind the story? Was it basically was the story the fact that you wanted a person to be like that, or did you want the person to be in that situation so that he could be in a limit situation? What was the objective of the man being paralyzed?
It's not, I mean, what you are actually asking is whether the story is a real story or whether it's a construction in a way. That's what your question is about. And it is certainly intended to be a real story. It's certainly intended to be a story about what happens to a character, which is also why he is this aggressive, why he's this angry, why he's this almost vicious in his whole manner. Whatever effect that has on the actual storyline is obvious. I mean, anything in a story goes together. I don't know if Anders Thomas has got something to add to that point.
Yes, well, I think we both agreed on that. We didn't want to tell a story about a handicapped person. But today, it's very difficult to build up a love story today, we both think, because people leave each other very easily. So you have to put the characters in a difficult situation so it isn't that easy for them just to leave, because that's very undramatic. So in a way, I think it was we chose this to build up the drama. Yeah, sure.
Sobre la utilización del estilo filmación Dogma.
The Dogma filming style, I would like to ask you whether you chose it because you believe it gives greater credibility to the story on the one hand, because when the camera moves around a bit, it seems quite natural, and I would like to know whether you chose the Dogma filming movement because like this. And yesterday, Kaurismäki said that in his press conference that the Dogma was out of fashion now, and the people that do this type of films had reinvented homemade films. What's your opinion about Kaurismäki's opinion about the Dogma movement?
First of all, it's really true. First of all, yes, it was. We made the story, and then we thought that the story would be greatly supported by being shot in the Dogma way. So it was a conscious choice of that sort of style, which is not, you're not supposed to say it's a style, but it is actually in fact a style. In order to make the story very, very real, which I think is the strong quality of Dogma. Actually, the strong quality of Dogma is that it is a home video, in a way. Is that it is, and Aki Kaurismäki is quite right in that point of view, because it is, you are, the qualities of Dogma is that you are really within somebody's home, within somebody's real kitchen, because you are not allowed to build another kitchen, you are not allowed to change the bathroom. Everything is there, and you are there. And it's not. I don't think at all that the realness comes from the handheld camera. Not at all. The handheld camera we've seen in loads and loads of films. The realness comes from not altering the locations, from being in real places, from not having a costume on the set, from not having the whole setup of a whole movie crew which is there to change the reality. That's why Dogma films becomes such real life films. And the handheld camera, because I'm not particularly fond of a very moving camera, I think it's annoying. I don't want to feel nausea when I watch a movie. And I think the handheld camera's real strength is that you can move it very lightly in order to capture the action and not have to actually move a whole big setup. And that's why it becomes real. So I don't think the style has gone out of fashion. I mean, we opened up to an enormous audience in Denmark, and so apparently it has not gone out of fashion, but it's not necessarily a new thing. It might have the quality from being a very real thing.
But you can also say that the Dogma is out of fashion in a way, because if you wanted to promote it on that we have made a film according to some rules, I couldn't care less. I mean, that's some rules, but you have to give the film some authentic feeling, which I think this film also has. But to promote it like a dogma film is totally out of fashion, I think.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Buenos días. Quisiera
Good morning.
preguntaros,
I would like to ask you,
cuando estaba viendo la película,
when we were seeing the film, half an hour after the film was started, I was asking myself, how is this going to finish? So therefore, when you constructed the story, the script writers, how did they address the end of the story or the film? Because the end of the story is in quote unquote, in inverted commas, because you don't know what's going to happen to these four characters, the married couple as well as the young couple that was going to get married before the accident.
A lot of endings, actually. But we both agreed on that we didn't want to do a story where there was actually, there's no antagonist in the film. There's no villain. Things just sort of happens and nobody is to blame. And therefore I think the ending also, it was very difficult for us because it's a hard one to close down because, and Susanne, I know Susanne, she didn't want it to moralize in the ending or say, this is, he goes back to his wife or he chooses whatever. And it is like a dead-end situation, so the film had to end where it ended, I think.
You can also say if the person you think is the protagonist and you have to follow him for the whole film, and suddenly he isn't the protagonist any longer, then we have the conflict. I think that's nice.
I mean, we actually wanted to show how, I mean, it might sound pretentious, but it is an attempt to show how we see life. And in my point of view, life doesn't necessarily come with ready, pre-packed solutions. And in this case, it's very obvious. I mean, there are no easy way out. They will all have to deal with their own lives. They will all have to deal with their fate. They will have to probably nothing much happens to all of them for the next half year. So the story is really over where we stopped it. I mean, they can't say anything more at this point in time.
At the beginning, at the end of the film, you finish with that shots which are inverted, that is to say, with the red images and the negatives. Why? What's the aesthetic or artistic reason that you start and you finish with the streets that are inverted, the colors? Okay, is that clear?
It's a heat-sensitive camera, and it's not a negative camera. It's just projects heat. And I had this idea that I wanted somehow kind of make an X-ray of human beings. And this was the closest to any sort of X-ray feeling that we could get. And I do think it works in that way. And that's why it's there. And that's why there are lots of people. I mean, it could be any of those people on the streets being shot with a heat-sensitive camera.
One final question, if you'll allow me, about the performances. When you were shooting the scenes, that is to say, were the scenes repeated a lot? Because the truth is, were there a lot of takes? Because I think one of the good sides of the film, I believe, is the capacity, how well the actors have performed, because I believe they did a fantastic job. I'm not too sure how you do the shooting of, whether a lot of takes were made, or whether there's a lot of improvisation, or were you very closely linked to did you follow the script exactly?
We followed the skeleton of the script every time. But we did improvise a slight bit in terms of the dialogue. I mean, sometimes a piece of dialogue might seem unnecessary, while actually, because another physical action could overtake that information or that emotional exchange. Yes, we did shoot lots and lots of material, but I think there's a lot of freedom in working with it's a very small crew, and because there's no lighting and there's no other technical stuff, there's a lot of freedom and there's a lot of focus on, I mean, the only thing that is important is the truth of the actors. And I think they, in my opinion, they are great actors, and they really wanted to obtain that truth. I think
But
that's
also,
what it looks.
one of the really good things about the dogma rules for the actors is that every time you shoot a scene, you have the opportunity to shoot the whole scene because we're shooting on video, so it's not that expensive. So if you have like a 12-minute long scene, we do the whole thing. So it has a continuity, this scene. Instead of doing small pickups, like a little in the beginning and then we do the end, we do the whole scene all the time. So it feels right and it feels true.
I have a question for the actors as well. You all come from different backgrounds. You've done a lot of different things, all of you. You've done stage, you've done television, cinema. Nikolaj Lekås and Paprika Steen has done dogma films before. Sonja Richter, Mads Mikkelsen, for you it's your first dogma film, if I'm not mistaken. Is there, well, for the two of you who have been in dogma films before, is there a certain style that you feel that you do when you do dogma that isn't like other kind of cinema? And for the two of you who did this for the first time, was there some new things for you?
I would start to say this is my fourth dogma film. I'm really out of fashion. I think that the acting is the acting. I mean, the inner soul of me is the inner soul of me, and I will probably think and feel the same thing, even if it was not a dogma. But what Mads just told you, that you can shoot these long periods, that means that you can start your emotion and end it in right speed. So and that is also why I don't feel that we improvised a lot. But when you shoot for 12 minutes, your emotions are so in line with what you're thinking. So sometimes, to get the reality very real, you change a little bit. You know, you swear maybe a little bit more. One thing that I improvised, what I slapped Mads' face after I found out that he was cheating on me because he knew her address. And that was not in the script, but because it was dogma, it allowed me to do that. And it was so good, and it was so natural, and it was so, you know, of course, when I did it. I would probably have done it in another film too, but maybe I would not have reached the point of daring it. So with dogma, you dare a little bit more. But technical, I don't see the difference for the actor that much, but I can only speak for myself.
Well, to be quite honest with you, I mean I've made a couple of dogma films before, but not in the sense that they were under the dogma rules. It's just that we didn't have any money to do these films. So we brought our own costumes, and we had shooting on video, and it was like a documentary as well. So for the actors, it's not such a new thing, and I think Spanish film has been doing it probably for the last 80 years, and all other countries as well. So, but the thing is with the dogma rules is that it allows especially some directors to focus different. And that is the good thing about it, to start and look in a different way. Not by necessity, but by lust. Not in the sense of lust, but because
but also,
you want to.
It divides normally when you're doing the real movie, like we never do $100 million movies in Denmark, so we don't have that experience, any of us. But I could imagine it would be even worse if it was a $100 million movie. You sort of divide the technical crew and the actors on the set, but this dogma thing allows the director to sort of interfere with the actors all the time and being a part of the actors crew, much more than, you know, discussing technical matters and production and time, you know, which make the director much closer friend in some sort of way, if you understand what I mean. Forstår det?
I've actually never tried to make a movie before.
She's a debutant.
So I can't really tell the difference because I've never tried anything else. But every time you get a new manuscript, it's a whole new universe, really. So, and that's like that on the stage as well. So I can't, yeah, that's what I have to say about this.
Maybe it's also, if you ask the actors, I would say in general, we're not saying yes to a Dogma movie, we're saying yes to this script and these people. And Dogma is like a second unit of it. That's not the first thing we think about. That is the script and the actors and the director.
Ahí en la segunda fila, una pregunta.
Just a very small question about this song by Angoon. Did you put this song because you liked, or because you thought they were appropriate, because it's a kind of sophisticated pop, and she is a girl working in a kind of small, sophisticated restaurant, and maybe her taste is like this?
Well, the songs were made for the film. The songs were made in order to have Cecily's character some sort of natural escape.
Exotic and something.
No, but also, I mean, a girl like that would listen to that kind of music, and it is a way for her to escape into another world when the whole world becomes too pressurized.
Thank you very much to all of you.